Welcome back, Woodstock guitar guy, Michael Veitch. We have a lot of guitars here to talk about, and we're here with one of them. We like to focus on new guitars that are inexpensive or can be modified and what those modifications could be. But we also like to talk about old guitars, and especially the inexpensive ones that are out there that are totally worth your time and effort to seek out. And I've got one of them here that kind of just landed in my lap out of good luck, I guess, good fortune, for about, $100. And I'll say this, it was rough. It had high strings, it needed a bridge adjustment. I thought the tuners were all whacked out, and I couldn't get the thing in tune. It wasn't really the tuner; it was the nut. The nut was really strange, and but here we are, about I guess a year and a half later with this guitar, and it's a beauty. It's a beauty. And what is it? It is a Sango. I call it the Mighty Sango. And I like it because of the tone. And the first note I hit, I could tell instantly that this guitar had some great mojo. Now it has a mahogany back and sides. I do not know if they are solid or plywood. I haven't been able to figure that out. Sometimes, I'll tell you, sometimes you can look in the sound hole and you can see a grain in the sound hole. And it's hard on mahogany. It's easier on other types of wood, but you can see a grain, and then you turn the guitar around and you can actually see the matching grain on the back of the guitar. That way, I think that's how you tell if it's solid. If the grain on the back is different than the grain through the sound hole, then you're looking at plywood, which frankly is not always a bad thing. And it gets kind of a bad rap. The Japanese guitars that were made with plywood were done right. The plywood they used was, from what I understand, it was very well done. It wasn't on the cheap, and those guitars sound great. If this is plywood, I personally don't care. Or laminate, as they call it, laminate. The Sango, if you go on Google and ask AI, artificial intelligence, the free one, about Sango guitars, you get a whole little rap about what they found. And part of there's my phone again. Part of the story, is that they were built during the lawsuit era. And as you can see, this particular guitar looks a lot like a Gibson. It does not really look like a Martin. Well, it could be, but it's called a Model 628. And you know what it does look like? It looks exactly like an Ibanez 628 from the same era. And the AI that I looked at before this taping basically says, here, let me get let's put it on Do Not Disturb. How do we do that here? Let's go in here. Do Not Disturb. I'm going to get rid of this thing here. Settings. Do Not Disturb. Turn on now. Okay. It's on Do Not Disturb. Okay. We took care of that. Do not disturb. No more phone ringing. So anyway, if you go on the AI and you look at what it says on Google AI, it'll tell you that these guitars were built during the lawsuit era, and that many of them were built in Matsuduko, but it's really hard to tell. And they can't, there's no tracking system as to who was built where and who what. There was Cortez and Ibanez, which was originally Cortez, and then Takamine, a whole bunch of these guys. And from what I understand it, people like Martin and Gibson and even Fender got upset with what was coming out of Japan because the guitars were actually very high quality. And they started this, what's called the lawsuit era. And the settlement, from what I understand, with the craftsmen in Japan was that they all went to work for Gibson and Fender and Martin, and they brought their talents to us with more guitars, which I think is a wonderful way to settle a disagreement, is to just combine forces and come up with something even more fantastic. This guitar, if you see one, grab it. That's all I'm going to say. I mean, if you see one in a pawn shop, don't worry about what it says on the headstock. Right? Let's get that. It's well done. It's pearl, or some form of pearl. This particular model has these tuners that, they're not great. I'll tell you that right now. But they do work. They're not fantastic or super duper, and if you want to swap them out, it's not going to be a big deal. This particular guitar has a very slender neck. It's not thick, it's thin. And when I got it, and it still has a little bit of a, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little bit of a bow in the top here, right here. There's a little curve in the, that's about it. And the strings were half an inch off the neck. The neck was like, boing. I just hit one note. And I just said, I'll take it, $100. And I brought it home and went to work on it a year and a half ago. I started fooling around with it. And today, actually, and last night, I really finally got around to fine-tuning it. And I fine-tuned it a couple of ways, but these are the real, this is the secret. When you get an acoustic guitar and you hit the cowboy chord, like, and it's out of tune. Oh, this is out of tune because the guitar has gone out of tune, but it's not out of tune because of the fretting. That doesn't sound too bad. That sounds pretty good, actually. And now what I've done is I went in to the nut. That's this right here, the nut. And you see where all the strings are. And the way I do this, and I'm giving you a handy hint, it took me a long time to kind of figure this out. I get a little tuner, get my snark tuner. I put it right up on top here. And I turn it on, and I hit a note, and I get it in tune, perfectly in tune to what, low E, get it perfectly in tune. And then I fret it at the G. Fret it. There it is. I fret it at the G. And then I look at the tuner. If it's sharp, if the tuner is sharp when you hit the G, but it's not sharp when you hit the E, then you got to do this. You got to get this little guy out here. You detune the E string, and you go into the channel on the nut where the string comes through, and you use the right gauge. Now, these particular files were very inexpensive. With the tariffs today, I'm not quite sure what's going to happen, but each one of these has two sizes, and this, you want the biggest size because it's the low E, so that would be 50. And you go in and you pull the string out, you go in and you file out just a little bit, not a lot, just a little bit, enough so that you see some dust. Okay, don't go crazy, just enough so you can see some dust, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to lower, get my hand out of here, you're trying to lower the distance between the string and the fret, because what's happening is if it's too high off the nut and you fret it like at the G, the string actually has to go too far to hit the fret, too far. It's too high. And that causes the string to go sharp, which is why, you play a chord sometimes on a guitar and it sounds like, whoa, this is crazy. And I got all my opens are completely in tune, and I hit the chord and something doesn't sound right. And the reason is that the string is sitting a little too high in the nut. That's what you want to go after, and that's what these nut files are all about. It took me a long time to get, pretty good at this, because the first one I did, I took way too much, and then all of a sudden the string is literally, too low, and you don't want that either. So I just take a little tiny bit, and then I put the string in, tune it back up, and then I check it. And if it's on, if that G is totally in tune with the low E, then I'm done. I don't have to do another thing. If it's still sharp, you got to do the whole process over again. Just a little tiny bit, just enough so that you see some dust. Don't go crazy with it, and then put the string back in and try it again. And I did that with this guitar last night. It's still a little out of tune, but that's better. Sounds pretty good, sounds pretty good. Plays like a dream. Everything is lower now. The other thing I did was I took the bridge out. This is a bone bridge that I put in probably a year ago, and I've just been gradually fussing with it. I'll play the guitar, I let it sit for a while, pick it up, and if the strings still feel a little too high, I'll take it out and take a little bit more off of it and put it all back together again and see what I think. And last night was, I think, the final adjustment. Now, this is the same story with the bridges. You don't want to take too much. You want to take them out of the saddle. It's called the saddle. This is the bridge. This is the saddle. You want to pull the saddle out, get a piece of sandpaper, and I recommend like an 80 grit. Don't go with the super fine because you'll be there forever. Get about an 80 or 100 grit, and you just sand it. And I don't know how many. I like to create my gauge is create a little pile of dust, bone dust. Not much, but enough so that you clearly see that you are taking something off of it. Then I put the whole thing back in. Then I restring it, and then I see what I think. And, if it doesn't work the first time, then take a break, put the guitar away, come back later. Maybe in my case, it was about a year later, and do it again. And I did. And came out great. I'm thrilled with this. For $100 and a little bit of elbow grease, not much, I've got a super sounding guitar from the 1970s. The wood is 55 years old. It's all well aged. Look around. Look around for the Sangos. Look around for the Ibanez 628s if you like this body design. Look around for Cortez. Dorado. We've done the Dorados here. The one I showed you has Brazilian rosewood, solid back and sides, and Brazilian rosewood fretboard, and Brazilian rosewood bridge. You can't get Brazilian rosewood anymore. It isn't out there. And that guitar cost me $60. Now, it needed work. I had to do stuff to it, and I had to do stuff to this. Now, because of this little ripple or old whatever. There's a little bump here. It kind of bulges out. Not much, but just enough so that it makes it really tricky to put an in sound hole pickup. Okay, and I like to use those sometimes when I'm recording. I use the microphones, the condensers, but then I like to use a pickup so that they get a line signal that they can kind of blend in. The engineers can blend in a little bit with the microphones. It didn't work. It didn't fit in the sound hole because it's kind of warped, which I don't mind. But what I did was something, I tried something different. I bought a $50 set of piezos, 3 of them, off of I think it was Amazon, but they're around everywhere for about $50. There's 3 of them, and there's it comes with a jack, you see, in the back, and you basically go in with some super glue and you stick them to the top from underneath. 1, 2, 3. Now K&K is a company that makes a very similar product for amplifying acoustic guitars, and they happen to be very good. And I have one set up in a guitar here, which we'll bring on at some point. They sound really good, but they're very expensive. And I like to try the less expensive option and see how it sounds. And I got the set of 3, and I got all the strings off, went in underneath and glued them under the bridge and installed the jack. And so I plugged that in. I plugged that into a preamp, and then that goes out, and it sounds pretty good. I could play live with this guitar without a problem at all. And I'll get to playing here. We'll play a couple of things, but I just want to say, look, these guitars, you see them, the strings are like this high off the neck, and the neck goes like this, and everything, there's no strings on it, or there's like 4 strings or something. I don't know. That's not what you really want to look at. You want to look at the wood, you want to look at the age, you want to look at how it's built. This is you want to look to see if it needs a neck set. You really, really, really don't want to pick up a guitar and do a neck set unless you know how to do a neck set, or you know somebody and have a friend who can do a neck set. Because doing a neck set on an acoustic guitar, and we'll talk about that. I've got a guitar here, a Cortez actually, that I did a neck reset on myself, and we'll talk about that. But it's not for the faint of heart. Doing a neck reset on an acoustic it's a real project. It's a lot more than adjusting the nut or adjusting the saddle in the bridge or putting in pickups, or even changing the tuners. You can do all this yourself. It's really fun, really easy. You can straighten out and level the frets. You can polish the frets. You can crown the frets. It's really easy. If you get a guitar that's got what's called fret sprout, and this doesn't have any, there are special little files, and you can go through and take off all the fret sprout. And you can do all this yourself. Resetting a neck on an acoustic guitar. We'll talk about that, and I'll try to talk you out of it. Unless you do the trick that I used, which actually worked, and I only think it worked because I got lucky. So anyway, let's play a couple of riffs here. You can hear how this thing sounds, and thank you for tuning in. Hit the join, hit the like, hit the share, hit the comment, hit subscribe. Please, come on, subscribe. Let's do more of this. And if you see a Sango out there, all I can say is, unless it's complete broken in pieces, if I were you, I would grab it and turn it into a project and try to make something out of it, because they used very good wood on on these guitars. This has a very thin top as well. I mean, thinner than my Guild by a lot. It gives it a nice resonance. I think if you take them on as a project and bring them back to life, they will reward you with lots of great tunes. Tone. It rings. It rings and rings and rings. Still ringing. That's what you want. You want something that's got some life in it. And these old guitars, totally. Thank you for tuning in. Michael Veitch, Woodstock Guitar Guy. We'll see you next time. Peace, love.